My name is Bridget Mungatia. I come from an interesting non-pastoralist background. I am humanitarian, but with special interest on anticipatory action and climate change. This is how I find myself in the room today. But excited really to be among great people. Imagine you are a great person because you chose, instead of sitting elsewhere doing other things, you're going to make a difference today by sitting here to talk about predictive tools for rangeland health, livestock, feed security, and rangeland restoration in the Horn of Africa. Does that sound like a familiar topic to you, or is it very new? By a show of hands, how many are familiar with this topic that we are discussing today? By a show of hands. Amazing. 3/4 of the room. So in that, we are going to be looking at what opportunities we have, what challenges we have in the drylands, in the rangelands. And we have a great team of esteemed professors, students, researchers to discuss this with us. We are honored, particularly, to have you in the room. Just look at the person next to you. Welcome. Yesterday, I learned something from Peter. It's time to know strangers in a strange place. It's time to network. It's time to look at what all of us are doing and ask yourself, ask myself, what difference can I make? And today, we are going to be understanding the fact that we have drylands presenting opportunities and challenges, and we are here as researchers, as contributors, to ensure that the combination of innovative sciences, integrated approaches to research for development, and effective partnerships and collaboration between you, the scientists, hello, hi scientists, and the researchers. Hi researchers. It seems we are both researchers and scientists, right? Kudos to all of us. And development partners and government partners, UN agencies, NGOs, both national and international. What can we do to make use of the researches that have come across? So in this session, we are highlighting some dryland innovations to enhance rangeland health, feed security, and rangeland restoration. We have an amazing team of knowledge thinkers seated right at my right hand here. They are going to be sharing their wisdom and knowledge with us. We are going to be seeing our good brother Julius Moizi from IGAD taking us through an introduction of the session. He's going to give us what is it we are talking about today. So you might want to like his volume, his voice, his vibe at the introduction. He'll take a little longer time because he's going to set climate for us. He's going to explain to us what are we doing in the room today. And then we will be having Dominic from Juba University, who is going to talk to us about the impact of invasive plants and weeds on livestock and pastoral context, a case study of South Sudan. I have a special passion for South Sudan and worked there for 7 years. It's a beautiful country. They are amazing people, driving through tough challenges, yet achieving great results. We have Zedi taking us through understanding the current status of cross-border rangelands, the available feeds and management practices for sustained management for transboundary natural resources, a case study of Karmuk district in Western Ethiopia. I post at countries because I want us to appreciate that we're going to be looking at different case scenarios and how does this contribute to how we make our studies useful to the people that we serve. I don't know if Zedi brought us some coffee, but Ethiopia is an amazing country with very good coffee. We have Francis Ejobi, the great professor, who is going to be taking us through participatory action research with pastoral communities for enhanced livelihood diversification and sustainably managed rangeland resources, a case of from the Soroti University. Those who know Uganda, you know that you can get very good matoke from Uganda, but amazingly as well, very good wealth of knowledge on how we are going to be ensuring that communities have sustained livelihoods to diversify our interventions. We have our very young student, John Mutwa, from the University of Edinburgh, who will take us through the national feeds balances using Earth observations to assess data, using Earth observation data to assess feeds security. It's interesting to see the wealth of knowledge we are receiving from the University of Edinburgh. And we will be hearing what John is working on. And I'm sure those of us, because we've answered that many of us are researchers and scientists in the room, we are going to be making sure that we listen from our students' point of view and how does this change what we already have and how does this contribute to what we would like to do in the future. To bring us to a more participatory observation method, we'll be having Helen Mutoga from Livestock taking us through community-led rangeland restorations in Ethiopia. How does that feel? Is that what you are expecting for today? Did I miss somebody? Do you think you're there and you wanted to contribute and we miss putting you? We will hear your views at the end of the presentations. I would like to request us to allow ourselves very detailed years, remembering to put not only years, but our very own research and science innovations in our minds. This is a very rare forum that we get to hear from students, very seasoned researchers. We have a wealth of knowledge from the IGAD team, who are almost half the room today. And we have those of us who are here to learn and make a difference. You are all represented in this team. Please take your time to listen, take your time to understand, take your time to see what you and me can make a difference for the sake of pastoralists. I will kindly, with your permission, introduce our first speaker, Julius Moizi, who is an amazing geoinformation science expert. He holds a couple of excellent qualifications, but most importantly, that he holds a master's degree in geoinformation science and Earth observation. He works with IGAD on cross-border areas for resilience pastoralism, rangeland health monitoring, diversity assessment, water supply sanitation, catchment management, planning, and state of environment analysis. He has a very solid career dedicated to harnessing geospatial technologies for natural resources and monitoring, currently working for IGAD. I do not know how to say the other ICPALD, but we all know he has diverse contributions to the topic of the day, and we are inviting him to set ground for us, to frame for us what the day is going to be like. Welcome, Julius, and take over the good voice that we all hope to hear in the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget, for the icebreaker. My name, once again, is Julius. I work with the IGAD Centre for Pastoral and Livestock Movement, and I'm here to share with you, present to you, especially on science-driven focused tools and innovations that really enhance rangeland health and feed security, and also inform restorations and liquidation within the drylands. You realize that drylands actually are home to quite a number of biodiversity, pastoralists, and also other socio-economic livelihood activities, but faced with increasing challenges, and other issues that really require innovative tools, innovative approaches, science-driven and co-produced information that really enhance the monitoring health of these ecosystems, especially within the Greater Horn of Africa. And we are really happy that the collaborative efforts, partnership, and science, as well as other professionals, are really part of this cause and drive, which really will be exhibited and shown in the proceeding discussions and case areas. So before the tools, which are really science-driven, co-produced tools, in addition to that, we shall have other mechanisms on how we bridge early warning to special action, as we shall look into the different stages of the presentation and case studies that the different researchers and interested professionals will share with you, with us to show the highlights of how these tools have actually been used and widely used in different disciplines, especially research, professional, and also to inform policy and other issues in national and regional planning. So before I proceed, I would first of all maybe relay my excitement to have met my mentor, my former lecturer at the University of Twente, who is in presence for this workshop. It was so amazing for the last 15 years. That really shows that research institutions, University of Twente is part of the research institutions that are really key in trying to drive code-driven research, innovative science to help enhance and build resilience within the pastoral and other dryland areas within the Greater Horn of Africa. So I'm really thrilled for that. So the predictive tools, we'll start by giving a brief background, but this has already been shared in the previous discussions. IGAD, its establishment, especially one of its mandates in 1996 was to mitigate the current droughts and address the issue of environmental degradation. And these are some of the key areas of mandate that are pertinent to this theme of building resilience of pastoral communities within the drylands. So the mandate, way back in 1986, where it was mandated to actually, mitigate and address the effects and other aspects. But the mandate was expanded in 1996, where it encompassed now peace and security, regional integration and cooperation. If you look at such mandates, really they're pertinent to this in terms of cooperation and collaboration between member states, research institutions, and other key players in trying to come up with solutions for tools and science to really enhance rangeland health monitoring, feed security within the drylands, as well as addressing issues of land degradation. So ICPALD, as the premier center for ICPALD, for IGAD, helps to implement some of this mandate, and one of the mandate key is to really promote facilitate sustainable, drylands development as well as livestock development within the IGAD region, and serves as the platform to really as a regional coordination and cooperation among member states in the areas of pastoralism, livestock, and also drylands development. Just a brief context to this, understanding the context in terms of how the drylands are the state of play in terms of, them holding or contributing to the GDP of the member state economies as well as the region. The IGAD region actually drylands dominate the IGAD region by, around 75% of the land mass, and as well as 40% within the African continent. So the drylands are really dominating these regions, and really could see how in exploring the full potential, of social and economic potential of these pastoral areas is very key in trying to drive the livelihood security, feed security, and also economic development within the region. The region is also home to around 532 million livestock, which really 40 million people actually depend on pastoralism within the region, or a million of 260 million population, and therefore contribute still significantly to the economic transformation and economic development of the region and the individual member states. And therefore, our areas of drylands mainly cover the cross-border peripheral areas within the IGAD region, as we see, where a lot of mobility, livestock mobility, and as well as other migratory, border trade and other economic livelihood components actually occur. So really giving a lot of attention in terms of science and tools, predictive tools that really provide the highlight on anticipation of the health of these ecosystems within IGAD region is paramount to especially enhance resilience of these pastoral communities, the drylands, and as well as the rangelands within the IGAD region. So here I'm trying to, in the context of the political, socio-political, coverage, realize that rangeland ecosystems actually extend beyond international borders, and this is actually due to their, ecological processes there within, especially if you look at the water cycle, hydrological cycle, all these kind of phenomena occur, in vast areas and for countries across, and therefore there's, interconnectivity within these ecosystems are very key in regulating and also enhancing the health of rangeland areas. So among the ecological variables that really provide or elaborate connectivity include also the animal migration, which is also a very key topic, in which includes, livestock as well as wildlife. You had in yesterday's discussion how wildlife and livestock, in terms of their compatibility, especially in terms of these corridors and areas, is very key to maintain and the health, and therefore their migration actually across borders and transboundary, especially in seasons where there is, a stressed rain and also straight vegetation to search for pasture and water in these other cross-border areas, and therefore they don't have non-human boundaries of, borders, and therefore collaborative efforts and partnership, especially within the IGAD region member states, is very key to ensure that these ecosystems are sustainably managed to also build their resilience, and as well as promoting socio-economic transformation within the areas. So in addition to the water cycle, we have, the soil formation as well. If you look at, the different formations of soil in terms of sedimentation and other processes, all these are cross-border areas. These are processes that really don't know known boundaries, and therefore that kind of connectivity is very key, and therefore maintaining the ecological functionalities and integrity of these ecosystems is very key. That is why research and code-driven innovations are very key to really ensure that these ecosystems are actually sustainably managed, protected, such that the livelihood of the pastoral communities, food, feed security, among others, are guaranteed within these areas. So, however, there are quite a number of challenges within these drylands, especially that are related to climate, variabilities, security, among others. ecological challenges, governance challenges, and political socio-economic challenges which are within the region. And therefore, among those that really are key, especially the ecological and the governance and the collaborative efforts that will probably address that. So you could really see that this conceptual illustration shows how the ecological, the ecosystem, biodiversity, and other key ecosystem services and the ecological processes within the IGAD region is very key in trying to understand the dynamics, the challenges, and the complex issues that really need science and other innovative approaches to really come up with solutions and ensure that these ecosystems are really resilient, the pastoral communities are resilient, as well as the rangeland areas. So in addition to drought, floods, the anthropogenic activities, land use change, cover changes, rangeland degradation, the population pressure, and other issues concerning land tenure, security, insecurity, land fragmentation, where found that these corridors are really other driven human activities like settlements, agriculture have taken over, and therefore deconnecting these ecosystems that really now threaten their productivity, the forage availability, and the ecosystem integrity. And therefore, that is why you come up with various management solutions that are really policy-driven, and that is where now IGAD as a region really has led several formation and preparation of policy frameworks that address some of these challenges, where now member states domesticate and be able to implement their provisions to ensure that these transboundary nature ecosystems are actually protected and sustainably managed. Among the tools, policy instrument tools that IGAD has been able to lead is one of the transformation protocol, which was shared yesterday, which has clear provisions that are addressing livestock mobility and regionalizing consumers across borders, and also looking at the ecosystems in terms of management and ensuring collaborative efforts, science-driven tools, information, and science that really enhance their productivity and health. Then the feed security and feed strategy that still was developed to address the issue of quality and quantity of animal feed, and therefore, the nutrition and other aspects of animal and also the pasture. Really, it has guidelines and provisions on how this can actually be addressed: production, quality, and ensuring the value chain and up to the marketing strategy. We also have the pasture and pasture seed production guidelines in terms of manufacturing, still addressing the issue of fodder availability due to different kind of anticipatory kind of stressed paths, vegetation, pasture within the pastoral areas. So all these documents actually geared towards ensuring that the communities, the pastoral communities, the rangelands, and also drylands are actually resilient. So here comes now with all the management strategies, the challenges that the region is facing. How has tools and science approaches, predictive tools, are actually supporting in enhancing monitoring the health of our rangelands and building resilience of the pastoral communities. So they are designed to anticipate changes. That is now what is very key also to drive, also to inform anticipatory planning, where we integrate different Earth observation tools, ecological and climate data, livestock, and the indigenous traditional systems to really, inform and be able to predict, anticipation of the health of these ecosystems within the drylands, as well as machine learning tools, models, ecological models, which offer powerful tools to inform spatial planning. So these tools are widely used actually in science and research, and most of them have been already tested, utilized by different researchers in different disciplines, and therefore, utilizing them as IGAD and within the region, we have been able to utilize them to predict and monitor and anticipate the health of rangelands and pasture within the region. So some of these have been widely published, as we shall look at them in the case studies that the different researchers will share. and they have been widely used. The effectiveness have been tested, and therefore sometimes we even do fusing of these tools by hybrid to ensure effectiveness of their outputs, and therefore communities especially have also been widely used pastoral areas to really make use of the traditional knowledge of forecasting, integrate with science and other tools and products from space that have really been created to ensure that at least the prediction is almost correct and informs anticipatory planning through responding, preventing reaction to proactive actions through supporting them. And why we think that this should actually be the way to do, especially in informing research and science, code-driven solutions, which are really impactful. We expect that the degradation of forage and other, forage shortages before the crisis sets in. So with the help of these tools, we can be able to inform the pastoral communities that in the next season, we expect specific regeneration of pasture. These dryland areas have been degraded and thereafter trigger restoration. So with the support of these predictive tools, currently as we demonstrated by discussants, you realize that they have been helpful, especially in informing them early enough before the crisis emerged. And also supporting the decision of pastoral communities, especially for mobility. They'll be able to understand where to move, especially in such seasons where they expect areas where they expect regeneration of pasture, availability of water. So therefore, they plan early enough to make decisions using still the local traditional method system. So they don't move randomly, they're informed by the traditional systems as well as the science-driven products that share with them, and also strengthening the regional governance, especially on the shared resources. We expect that these areas expect to have likely impacts, stressed vegetation and the like, and the degradation is needs to be reversed. So collaborative efforts between member states with use of these policy instruments, measures, practices in place, forming coordination structures along the cross-border areas, multi and bilateral agreements that govern utilization of these resources and tools, among others. So we expect that these tools really help to inform early enough and provide responsive preventive response other than reactive responses. Among the tools that we're utilizing currently in the IGAD region is that predictive tool on forage and pasture within IGAD cross-border areas of Karamoja, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Kenya, where IGAD does forecasting of the next season before to inform anticipatory planning and action early enough. And these predictive tools are based on climate data and other socio-economic impact data to inform. So this is, for example, an output that shows now where the consumers, in terms of where they should do grazing, especially movement of their herds to such areas early enough for the seasons, like for example, March, April, May, and this upcoming season of October, November. They already know where to at least take their animals with the help of climate data that is provided by our IGAD Centre for Climate Adaptation Center to ensure that really all these data and tools support in the forecasting. And for example, that's the output now that shows where we expect straight regeneration of pasture and also declined pasture and availability. And also in terms of the current pasture, looking at the quantity that they expect to find and how much animals should be driven to such areas. So these are the sources, the East African Hazard Watch and also the ICPALD website, but we do downscaling through climate outlook forums to reach to the last mile, the communities using still early warning applications like the Wusika app, which was developed by ICPAC. It's a mobile-based kind of system where pastoral communicate and also technical working groups communicate with pastorals this information that we generate. We also have the IGAD health monitoring platforms that still are driven with open source and use of Earth observation data and products. So still bridging this intends to also address through embedding forecast-based triggers and predefined response plans, financing mechanisms, and cross-border coordination are enough so that the pastorals can be able to be resilient to this. So this is a matrix showing how early warning and action where, for example, feed deficits, we expect feed deficits within those areas, prepare, for distribution of like fodder banks, for destocking, off taking, drought insurance, measures where with cash such they can prepare enough, activate, postpone grazing agreements, livestock, vaccination campaigns, and deworming to ensure that also rehabilitation of the water infrastructure are enough, and the critical sources, as well as water tracking and providing, for example, supplements and other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julius. Welcome to those who have just joined us. We are happy to hear the amazing work that IGAD is doing to bridge the gap between research and code-driven science to get more predictive and prepared. I would like to highlight that in this session, we are going to have two amazing colleagues at the end to give us the observations. We'll have Hussein Wario, who brings us a social science observation aspect on community-based approaches on rangeland interventions. And then we have our great senior scientist, Ambika Paliwal from ILRI, who is going to give us a remote sensing and perspective and other observation perspectives. Thank you so much, Julius. We look forward to hearing more from the participants. In our next session, I am glad to introduce Dominic Lado. Dominic is the Assistant Professor and Head of Animal Production, College of Natural Resources and Environmental Studies from the University of Juba. He holds a degree in animal production, master's in animal science, and a PhD in animal science. And he has published several papers in peer-reviewed journals and presented several scientific conferences. His interest is mainly in genetic and economic aspects of livestock breeding, and he's going to share his knowledge with us and give us a perspective on where we stand on the rangeland health. You're welcome, Dominic. Yes, please. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. So, unfortunately or fortunately, the rest of the presenters, we have 5 minutes to get to share our knowledge with the participants, and we are looking to making sure that we do not miss the key ideas that we want to share. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present on behalf of my research team on the topic identification and mapping of invasive plant species in Capoeira East County of Eastern Equatorial State. As we've been hearing from most of the presenters, actually there are a lot of challenges and opportunities within the drylands all over the globe, and in particular in the IGAD region. So I'm here also to highlight on some of the challenges that are facing dryland areas within the Republic of South Sudan, and in particular Capoeira East County of Eastern Equatorial State. As we know, drylands cover about 40% of the global land area, and within Eastern Africa, it is occupying about 75% of the land cover. And in South Sudan, it is specifically around 20% of the dryland areas. So, and most of these areas falls within Eastern Equatorial State, which is one of the 10 states within South Sudan. And this area actually support most of the pastoralists and agro-pastoralist livelihoods. So it's a very important area. However, there are a number of challenges that affect the dryland areas. And one of the major challenges is the emergence of these invasive species. And actually, it is becoming a very big challenge within that area. And one of the challenges that this invasive plant species is causing is actually affecting livestock and wildlife. And this is particularly in terms of the poisoning of livestock and also injuries. Number two, it's also encroaching grazing lands for these livestock and also farmlands. As you understand, also some of these communities do some crop farming, and some of these invasive species actually affect farmlands. And also encroachment to water, resource areas, of which it interferes also with water for livestock and human. And another thing also, the local communities within those areas are also displaced. It causes displacement of local communities from their homelands. So it's actually a major problem. And the aim for the study is actually to map and identify these invasive species, also to identify what management practices the local communities are also undertaking, and also what uses that some of these communities are using these invasive plant species for, and also to assess intervention measures. So it is important to undertake this study actually because it can provide baseline information about the management of these invasive species, and actually can also help in coming up with appropriate recommendation in terms of management and eradication of these invasive species, and also can guide policy for the country in terms of how do we manage these invasive species. This is the map of the study area. So the study population actually it targets pastoralists and agro-pastoralists within 3 biams of Kapoita East County, and a total of 176 households were interviewed using questionnaires. And the data collected, actually, it is through the interviews with the households, key informant interviews, and also focus group discussions. Then also the GPS points were also taken using a GPS device to record the points where most of these invasive species were. And when it comes to the analysis was done using Microsoft Excel and SPSS, and the results was presented using descriptive statistics. And for the GPS points, it was uploaded into ArchMap for the mapping and identification of those invasive species locations. Then the maps also were generated using invasive distance weighting to generate maps for the main invasive species. And also the remote sensing data and random forest classifier supervised machine learning was implemented within Google Earth. So from the results, we have the most common invasive species. We have Prosopis and Parthenium. These are the most common invasive species. As you can see, the percentages are higher compared to the rest of the invasive species. And when it comes to the distribution within the three, biomes studied, we have most of the invasive species were found in Naru's biome. This is the map for the land cover and use of the study area or the whole county. And this is also the distribution of Prosopis within the three biomes. And as you can see, we have Narus leading in terms of the Prosopis, which is one of the most common within, the area. Then we have also the distribution map for Parthenium, which is also the second in terms of abundance within the study area. So when it comes to the management practices, usually the community use burning and uprooting of these species, in addition to cutting and weeding. So these are the most common management practices that the local communities are using. And when it comes to uses of these invasive plant species, as you can see, they are also used by livestock for feeding and also human consumption. But with respect to the humans, mainly when during the focus group discussion, when we sit with the community members, they actually said for the adults, they don't eat this, the seeds for this, invasive species, which is Prosopis, but mainly children who are eating because it has some sugar content. And also it's being used for fuel and also building materials. So when it comes to gender, we have also gender roles. Men, majorly, they are engaged in burning and cutting of these invasive species and to some extent uprooting. But when it comes to women, you'll find most of them engage in weeding. So in conclusion, Prosopis and Parthenium are the most common dominant species in Capoeira East. Uprooting, burning, and weeding are the main management practices. And also Prosopis are partly used for human livestock, firewood, building, and medicinal purposes. And also these Prosopis, mainly, they are spread through uses of fence, especially for corrals, livestock and wildlife, and water runoff. So the best method used in managing or control of Parthenium are weeding and burning. But Parthenium is not being utilized by the local communities, as you have seen from the results. And also cutting of this plant species is mostly done by men, while weeding is done by women. And also local communities demanded for eradication of these Prosopis and Parthenium. So recommendations: cutting or burning of these Prosopis should be accompanied by uprooting to avoid production of more copices, which may result into multi-stem plants, and also co-management as a measure to manage invasive plant species should be adopted. Then relevant government authority should pass laws and regulations banning the use of Prosopis, and weeding, cutting, and burning of these two main species should be adopted before plant set seeds or reaching flowering stage. Heavy machinery also can be used to effect uprooting of these invasive species, especially Prosopis. It's very difficult to uproot them, especially when it is grown old. Then enlightenment about also modes of spread is very important, threats and management, so that it can help also in terms of management of these species. And also gender should be included when formulating management practices. And integrated management is also very important in terms of management of these species, biological, chemical, methods. And Prosopis and Parthenium should be eradicated. So areas for further research.
Yes, 3 more seconds.
A study to explore the use of prosopis as animal feeds, especially to get rid of heat spots, and also to determine allelopathy property of Juliflora. And more studies should also cover all the 3 counties of Greater Carbohydrate. We'll acknowledge also support from ICPALD, University of Juba, Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, and the local government. These are photos of some of these invasive species, houses abandoned, Parthenium occupying farmlands. Also, they are being used as shed for livestock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominic, and apologies for rushing you. I'll kindly request the upcoming presenters, if you could give us just a very brief background, focus on your key results and the challenges, and to allow us think more effectively so that we are able to cover all of us. I invite Zeli from the amazing western part of Ethiopia to share with us his experience. And we are glad to note that he's a renowned researcher and has peer-reviewed a couple of international journals. You're welcome, Zeli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But before I start my presentation, the chairman is strong because she come to my intro. May I ask you 2 minutes so that 7 minutes I need? Can okay, thank you. Okay, good morning to you are welcome. So because of time, I rush. So I'm here to present on behalf of my friend, understanding the current status of the cross-border rangeland, which is most common rangeland in Sudan and Ethiopia. So as many of say rangeland, the 2/3 of the sub-Sahara, which is home of millions, and regarding to the IGAD, it's also large, so it is economically secure. So for sustainable use of this management, this finding just started from the scratch, okay? There is no any baseline information regarding these 2 community rangeland where this study is conducted. So that we need to assess the current condition, share both this cross rangeland and available key resource and governance and management. So we need to finally identify those challenges and opportunity for further designing sustainable. So I am rushing, just study will conducted near to the western and the northern parts of Sudan. So I'm not go to through. So these are a kind of demarcation of the rangeland where the samples taken in 3 areas in both rangeland, so that we can cluster in 3 parts, so that we can demarcate and study the type of coverage of vegetation and the herbal shares. So what we find, I mean, this is also another land use land cover approach were used, and different software also used to locate in this resource mapping. So regarding to the result, we found that rangeland classification in both areas was similar almost the location, and also it has got 347 hectares, and that has border to the same west to Sudan, and it has a good type of clay type on both sides. So the climate, regarding the climate, the maximum, it's reached to 13, and during the dry season, 39 degrees centigrade, and the average rainfall is a biomodal rainfall, so that this is the site where we demarcate. And regarding to the resource utilization, both community utilizing this both rangeland, we have different ethnic groups of from Sudan side, so that they use, these are 2 more using the one rangeland, the other remaining to the Kumru area. So that I rush, I come up to my conclusion so that you can highlight, okay, the findings. So simply I show you some of the points. So these are the Sudan livestock, much more livestock is grazing in the common area of those Ethiopian and coming to Ethiopia, particular area of the rangeland. So there is pressure on grazing because of the number of livestock. So the liability instability in most these pastoralists area high prevalence in animal illness and feed security is that or the trade which expect. And then conflict sometimes happen, okay, between those conflict because of this driven from environmental exploitation or the scarcity. And some of the conflict is coming arise by tree cutting, bamboo harvesting for construction and economic income. However, conflict limit between cultural similarities we have found in our research. So those that limit conflict, though there is a conflict between them. In fact, there is a need to leverage shared culture type for building initiation just to mitigate as a mitigate measure. We can duplicate this experience. So currently, there is no effective management. In fact, the wildlife and deforestation livestock is the most threatened that deteriorate the area. And basically, soil erosion and other poor management is there. And community perception, they burn the rangeland, just to think that to regenerate, but they burn the grass due to the ample time. So later, during the dry season, there is a shortage of feed. So the lack of uniform legal framework and extensive environmental degradation, weak enforcement mechanism pose the major this research identified was a threat that really affecting the livelihood of the pastoral area. Therefore, improving ecosystem and supporting communities is very vital in this case. So we identify 6 major classes in the rangeland. So the most common one is woodland and the forest is the most dominant one, followed by shrubs and grass, and then the last, this one, okay? Regarding to the specific to the rangeland, we also identified grasslands dominant in one rangeland, we call it the Kurok one, and the follow shrubland. And between the rangeland, there is much more difference between, okay, the composition, okay? For instance, in Akanda, woodland and land more and followed by grassland, okay? This indicates these high differences between the pressure of livestock. So we identify also the 37 woody plants, okay, from which are the most important, which are having different natural selection, okay, because of the adverse effect. So that this indigenous woody plant also used as the feed during the scarcity of period. And then also we identified 27 herbaceous fish, which is most important types of species. So ecologically, we can say that the moderate, thank you very much. The moderate, so we can find the livestock resource, Sudanese livestock heavily outnumber Ethiopian animal, particularly in that specific area, because community rely on the rangeland for grazing, and the conflict challenge is there. So we need to minimizing by making use of similar culture and under the threats, the rangeland facing significant threat under control fire, significantly wildfire, deforestation, and ecological conditions. So the conditions seem to be fair, but gradually to get not good. So we need to take care, design a strategy to further using this sustainable land overclassification. Almost 82% of the area is covered by this larger spatial extent. So this support ecology balance and local livelihood. Hence, in this study, the data which used to ensure for sustainability rangeland management in both Ethiopia and Sudan. As to conclude, I mean, if you have time, fire management, improve cross-border environment, and promote rangeland restoration, sustainable use, and advance climate change adaptation, and formal restriction, protection of key land. Lastly, there is collaboration between government is most important comment. With this, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zedi. I think it's the best example of keeping time. We give him the medal. Thank you. Interesting to see how what Julius told us at the beginning, the interconnectivity between the ecosystems and how we need to ensure that we have collaborative efforts to build resilience. We just saw that in what Dominic presented. I have now the honor to invite Professor Francis. We are very glad to note that he has done quite very interesting researches and very complex indeed. We acknowledge that what he presented to us was very complex. We invite you, Prof, to choose what you would like to share with us. And because we rarely get professors in the house of the nature of Professor Francis, I invite all of us to pay keen attention, and we ask him as million questions as we'd like to. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much, Richard. As you open my slides, I'll try to be the side of the time you've given me. It should be not at all. Yeah. The one with the job. Can you put slide more? Okay, colleagues, good morning. I'll share with you briefly the work we did in Uganda. This work was done by 3 institutions, Soweto University, where I work, and the National Agricultural Research Organization. The key person was Dr. Paul Boma. And the third institution was ICPALD International Limited, and the team comprised of Jane, Henry, and Susan. Henry is actually in the house, you can just show. Okay, this work was done as a component of an ICPALD project on sustainable ecosystem management. To the very, very short study, just to understand what was on the ground. The overall objective was to generate some evidence. Instead, we talk about getting evidence to support cooperating on projects or designing to help IGAD in their programming in that district there. Our specific objectives were to establish the production constraints and marketing pathways of small stock, local chicken, and API product chains. Soweto University led this objective. This was from NARO. The second objective was to conduct a value chain analysis, value addition prospects, and marketing of consumed fodder, including crop residues, hay, and other crop products. This was led by Soweto University. And the third objective, which was led by ICPALD, was to enhance the capacity of pastoral communities to manage land resources using a gender lens. So it was a collaborative effort, each institution did in one objective, but working together in the field. In terms of methods, we did this study in the Kabongo district, one of the districts in Uganda, the far northeastern part, but we zeroed into one sub-county, which is called Moro sub-county. This sub-county shares borders with Kenya and also with South Sudan. So it was a very important sub-county in terms of cross-border movements. The sub-county composed of 3 parishes, and we considered all these parishes in our study. In terms of data collection, we used major qualitative methods to develop the study. We used key informal interviews, local group discussion, and also direct observations of the rangelands when in the field. We collected data in the span of about 12 days in February. We conducted 3 mixed focus group discussions with a total of 114 participants. We also conducted 1 mixed gender and 3 gender and age separated focus group discussions, mainly to collect data on the small stock, local chicken, the PRA, and also on the consumed fodder value chains. We had 43 key informants. We interviewed them. 8 key informants were interviewed for the consumed value chain. We also conducted 2 in-depth interviews, mainly with the male elders of Mombasa County, and also with 3 persons in an NGO called the Pastoral Development Organization. When we were there, we also observed the state of the rangelands as we move through the sub-county. Our findings in brief, in terms of constraints to small stock, we identified quite a couple of constraints, and we ranked these constraints based on some ranking tool called the Garrett ranking scheme. The top 5 constraints to production of small stock were insecurity, was number 1. Number 2 was price fluctuations. Number 3 was poor communication network. Number 4 was destocking due to external rates. And number 5 was intra-community thefts. This is theft within the community. The others were external rates here. In terms of the local chicken, the 3 top concerns we identified on the ranch were diseases, deflocking due to insecurity, long distance covered to access the gazetted chicken markets, or to take the chicken to markets which are far from the community. In terms of the bee value chain, the 3 top causes were wildfires. This was really a problem in the dry season. The second cause was lack of processing equipment, and the third cause was insecurity. Now, in terms of gender, we found that women with the support of children and youth take care of the young animals, including cows, kids, and lambs. And this role is undertaken mainly at home rather than in the communal grasslands. The appeal value chain is well established in this sub-county and relies heavily on communal grasslands and also public forest land. There are forests in this sub-county, and the National Forest Authority allows the people there to put hives in the forest. The construction of hives is done by men, while the setup and installation of the hives are selected sites in the community rangeland, and public forest is a shared task between men and youth. Thank you. The marketing process of small stock, local chicken, and appeal products, they are poorly developed in these communities. The major marketing pathways were from the farmer to buyer within the community. They're very, very short marketing pathways. The other pathway was from farmer, producer to buyer, for example, when there are visitors in the people visiting the area. And the other pathway was from producer to trader in the market set. In terms of actors, we noted that there are very diverse actors involved in these value chains. For the consumed fodder value chain, it was not considered a major livelihood activities. Actually, at the time of the study, nobody was in this value chain. Most women are involved in production as owners, farmers, and decision makers in the local value chain. On the extreme right, we see these markets, and most of the actors which with high value, with high interest and high power were mainly government technical staff, farmers, and religious groups. In conclusions, the PRA and local chicken value chains offer high potential for diversifying livelihoods of the e-community. We know that there are 2 groups in this from the e and the .org. The small stock and local chicken value chains offer high potential for diversifying livelihoods for the community. The consumed value chain is currently not developed in these communities and is not considered a priority for diversifying livelihoods. There are quite a range of gender divisions in the labor. As for recommendations, we recommend that we invest to improve the small stock, the PRA, and local value chains for Monole by restocking the sub-county with improved stock. We also recommend to improve the road network. Actually, this was one of the biggest problems. The road network was poor between the sub-county and the neighbors. We also recommend to integrate gender education knowledge into regional planning, and lastly, promote inclusive regional governance and decision making. We acknowledge all this, and thank you very much.
when the professor speaks, he speaks with quite great precision. Interesting to note the role of women in owning and caring for animals, and what great start contribution in security has in the value chains. I now invite, I'm seeing that people are looking like they are tired, but please be a little patient. We have 2 more presentations and observations before we hear from you. I invite John Mutua, who is a student from the University of Edinburgh. He's going to be sharing with us, he's a geospatial expert, who is going to be sharing with us the feed balance sheet as a tool for feed security assessment. John, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. It's quite hard us to speak after the professor have spoken. But I tried my best. I've been listening to the presentation since yesterday, and I think we didn't much about feed. But I think feed is what should actually be used to mitigate risks. So it's only fair we could track how much feed we have, how much we need. So that's what I'll be discussing with you in the next 5 minutes. And it's about feed, just like how companies have balance sheets. So are we able to also have like a feed balance sheet? Kind of like tracking what we have and how much we need. Most important is to using the available tools that we have at observation data and the latest data that we have to track this. So my question is, what if we could prevent every other livestock feed crisis? Because what we have, what happened maybe 3 years ago was basically a feed crisis. And we look at the livestock sector, very critical to GDP. So we really need to have a strategic feed management. So the missing link from where I come from is knowing the supply side and not also knowing how much we need. Now with that, we can actually know whether we have enough or where we need to get the deficits. So the problem that we have is kind of like very reactive feeding. Although we've done very well on like weather and climate information, but I think what farmers or what pastoralists need is knowing whether the next season is going to be good grazing season. So that level of detail. So need to be very strategic in planning livestock nutrition and make decisions based on data to avoid this chronic feed crisis. So when we feed our animals the right way, they are productive. Then we also avoid economic losses. So this is a solution that we are given. We are already trying it out, and I'll be sharing with you. So the feed balance is a rapid assessment tool based on Earth observation data. We are able to track all the available feed resources. So we are talking about grass or browse, or the cultivated forages. So all the feed resources that we have for both wet and dry seasons. And also data is available to know the numbers of livestock that we have, the species, what type of animals, their live weight. So we can actually even track the requirements we need in terms of dry matter, in terms of energy, and you can compare those 2 variables to know the balance. So we were able to try this out in Nigeria over the last, for the end of last year and up to mid this year. And this is just the top 4 livestock needs. And here I'm presenting to you cows, goats, sheep. And you can actually see where the animals are, right? Towards the north of Nigeria. So we have feed there, or where is the feed? Where is the feed coming from? So of course the dry and savannas host the most of the ruminant livestock in Nigeria. but like you see, that's not where the feed is coming from. Because most of the feed is coming from the south. This is a supply, so distribution really doesn't match the needs. So feed is not available where animals are concentrated. That's one. So when you look at the demand, so I've shown you the supply, look at the demand. So the demand is again in the northern sides. There's less demand in the humid side. So you can actually have that type of picture. So how does the balance look like? So at the national scale, we have like on 8%. So from what you see it, you might think, this is very manageable. When I look at the disparities that we have on the state level. Yeah, so some states have very huge surpluses, others have very serious deficits. And I think, so we presented these results in Nigeria, April this year with a policy meeting in there. We also invited policy makers from, some of them are actually in this room, to discuss this. So government was there, and government was there, and we had a policy brief. But now, what I'm telling is that what the data that we presented is currently informing the feed and fodder sector in Nigeria, and that's where they were able to raise funds which are directly invested in the feed and fodder. So that's to the government. So for industry, you can actually use this data to inform a strategic investment. So where is feed coming from? Where can you invest food for the banks, and buy feed from one area, move it to where it is needed. And of course, healthier animals mean better yield. So we are transforming reactive feeding into a strategic plan. That's what I had, and looking forward to our conversation.
We give him another clap for giving us a balance of 1 minute. Thank you so much, John. And we look forward to getting to learn more from your findings. I now invite Helen Mutogo, who is the Director of Operations for ICPALD. She's going to be sharing with us the fusion of technology with traditional knowledge to regenerate rangelands. You're most welcome, Helen.
Thank you so much, Bridget. They always say women first, but in this case, it's women last. I have very little time. Normally, I can talk for hours about ICPALD, but I have my team here with me. They can just dwell so that you can see them during the breaks, so that they can talk to you for hours about ICPALD. ICPALD, the other presenters have talked about the research that they have done. For us, ICPALD is more of an implementation. I think somebody in the room yesterday said we have research, now it's time to do some implementation, take some action. That's what you're trying to do, but also hand in hand with research. We implement and research at the same time. We've been around for more than a decade. Across 3 countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and now we're doing a little bit of a pilot in Somalia. Our flagship project or product, the ICPALD app, was started after the 2010-2011 drought. We realized that, and somebody said this again yesterday, that migration decisions are complex. When to migrate, where to migrate, how many animals to move with, what time to move, is complex, and it actually becomes harder when the drought is happening at that point. So we provided this tool, as you can see on the left. Is that the left? Yes. Which provides pastoralists with a snapshot of the rangelands. They get information on the vegetation cover, as you can see, different sheds. They get information on water availability. They're able to calculate distance to where they want to migrate to. They get historical the historical trend of how the rangelands have been for the past 12 months. And we also collect crowdsourced information on things that affect pastoralists like diseases, predators, conflicts, etc., etc. So with the Livestock map app, we have mapped over 50 million hectares of rangeland across the 3 countries. We have over right now 50,000 users of the app and 22,000 crowdsourced alerts. There is just some of the feedback that you're getting from the users. Because of time, I'm not really going to it. But the users are saying that it's a very important decision support tool. They have the snapshot of their rangelands, big rangelands, and then they can decide, because this area is good, has vegetation, water, I can see it right here, then it's better to move that side than this side, and complements their traditional system. Quickly, our second product, because we do a lot of research along the way, and we try to catch up with the challenges that pastoralists are going through. IFSOT region was born or developed during the 2020-2022 drought. The idea is because the rangelands are shrinking, they're becoming smaller and smaller, and you'll find that because of the challenges that pastoralists are experiencing, instead of them doing the traditional collective decision making, it's becoming individualized. And then it's a challenge because individual decision making in a communal rangeland, degeneration is exacerbated. Now we're trying to use technology to sort of enhance the traditional system of moving together from one place to another. We are in 70 communities in Ethiopia and a few pilot areas in Kenya, mapped over 1.5 million hectares in the region. Quickly, how does region work? For region, we work with the small arrangements, and then we create what we call virtual paddocks. When you talk to pastoralists about paddocks, it becomes an issue, but virtual paddocks in the sense that we divide the rangelands in using natural features like rivers, mountains, hills. And then with these paddocks, we work with the communities, ask them to move from one virtual paddock to another, giving the other paddocks time to regenerate. How do we do that? We use data. We look at the quality of the paddocks. We look at the number of livestock that they have. We look at the length of the season that they are grazing. And then we recommend to them, these are the number of days that you can stay in this particular area of your rangeland together, then move to the next. What happens after we recommend, as IFSOT based on technology and the data, the management at the community level, they review the plans, they edit the plans, and then they approve. Because based on their experience, they know their areas better. They have experience on how they've been grazing over time. After approval, they direct or send this information to their herders, either through SMS or the IFSOT application. And then this is implemented. And then our team at the ground, we collect data back, and we use this over time to improve the recommendations that we make to the communities, in future. Somebody said yesterday in their presentation that technology cannot replace tradition, because the tradition have been working for a lot of years, hundreds of years, yeah? So at IFSOT region, we are using technology to make the decision making more efficient. Decisions can be made at the snap of a finger, because they already know this is the number of livestock, this is the quality of the paddock, and the recommendations can be calculated very fast. And then they look at this, edit a little bit, and start implementation. We work with, like I've said, traditional leaders. We work with the government at different levels, as you can see here. We work with the communities to sort of map their rangelands, delineate the virtual paddocks, and then the decisions are made. We have, as you can see here, there's some Wareda leadership, there's Kebele leadership in Ethiopia. I know the FECADU can understand that. These decisions are made together so that we bring back the collective decision making. So because of time, quick learnings that we have, I just have 5, if you allow me. There's significant changes in grazing and rangeland management. Right now, because of climate change, you'll find that pastoralists, like I've said, instead of being collective, everybody is rushing with their many livestock. This one grazes here, there, and this one exacerbates degeneration. So when you do region and they move collectively, they're giving the lands time to regenerate, and therefore the quality of the pasture and the availability increases. The return of flora and wildlife is better in the areas that we deal with. Just a quick one, going in Logo the other day, and the communities within 10 minutes, they could tell us 40 species of plants that have disappeared in the last 20 years, which we thought it's, of course, a tragedy. But you're hoping with region, actually, we have proven with region that some of these species come back over time. Like I said, collective decision making, including women and youth, we include them in the, or they're included by the community now in how the decisions are made because they're affected. Conflicts are reduced because we're working together with traditional, formal government, the community themselves, and the well-being of the community, of course, has improved. You know, with pastoralists, the better the rangelands, the better the livestock, the better their livelihoods. I'll stop there, but we are here. We can talk to you for hours about what we are doing, and we are looking to collaborate with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen, really much appreciated. One of the catchy points is that technology doesn't replace tradition, but we make decisions more efficient. I think it's the case for all of us. Now we have the honor to allow our scientists to give us their observations. If I kindly invite Ambika and Hussein here to the front, and we start with Ambika giving each of them, if less than 3 minutes, the better, but a maximum of 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. And it's very wonderful to listen to all the 6 presenters, and congratulations to all of you for a wonderful work that you've been doing. I'm Ambika Paliwal from International Livestock Research Institute based in Kenya. And as a Earth observation scientist, I always feel that whenever we are working with satellites, there are 2 things that we really notice. That one is that the Earth is very big, and all of us have a smaller budgets. So that is, but at the same time, it's good that we have technology, which is remote sensing. Of course, it comes with its own caveats and also complements. So I completely agree that, of course, we cannot replace the entire technology with the fieldwork. It needs to be complemented. I was in the artificial intelligence workshop last week, and we were discussing a lot that how technology can bring and solve a lot of problems. But few things which cannot be solved, like for example, if you need to eat tiramisu and taste it, technology cannot help you to give the taste. You have to experience it by yourself, right? So I think with on that note, I think I would like to give a few of my observations, starting from the first presentation from IGAD. Great work which IGAD has been doing, and I think which is really complementing all of the presentations in the region, because they are looking at the big picture, and what the presentations are also doing is actually focusing on within the country. So great, thanks to IGAD for doing this forage forecasting tool, and I think it's very, and also the concept of transhumans within Africa. It's kind of very important aspect both in East and West Africa, and I don't think that we can actually overlook that component and keep developing some kind of a technology, not understanding the traditions. So thanks to this for that, and I would also thanks for this identification and mapping of invasive species, very close to my heart, this subject. I'm working on this myself. So I think we have a lot to talk on that, but I think also it's very important to actually add a few more different technologies on this aspect, and adding inverse distance weighing is a good method, but I think with upcoming new different methods, you can actually further improve it and do it for the entire region. So I'm glad that IGAD can also help, and that could help a lot of collaborative research and outputs. I also want to thank to Befcado from Osoa University on the assessment of the current conditions of rangelands. As we always say in remote sensing, that what it gives us this more evidence generation, where, what, and how. So where we need intervention, what are the things that we need to do, and how much is available. Thanks to Francis also from Soroti University from Uganda on showing that participatory approaches aspect. And thanks to other speakers, John and Helen, wonderful work on national feed balances. We are also working with John from with International Livestock Research Institute, and I think it's very important to understand how much do we have to understand how much do we need. So the whole game of demand and supply. And also Helen for just giving the perspective to the policymakers and to the pastoralists that what is present where and how we need to improve on from there. So I think a wonderful observations from the remote sensing angle, and we keep on improving, adding up new data sets and having more collaborative approach. I personally feel from International Livestock Research Institute that all of us in this region, we need to collaborate and work together as much as to get the great outputs for the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambika. Over to you, Hussein.
Good morning. My name is Hussein Wario from the Center for Research and Development in Dryland, based in Northern Kenya, Marsabit. So being a man from Marsabit, listening to the big conversation, I was just trying to see how does it make sense to the smaller people on the ground. Here we say we are looking at science-driven co-produced tools. And the question for me is, yes, we have been doing a lot of this. I did it myself also. But the question is, how can we make it still more of better utility to the people on the ground? And particularly, as a pastoralist on the ground, I'm interested in more localized information that can help, make this decision. And when this big data comes at this broader level on these shades of grays and greens, what does it really mean for me on the ground? And particularly when framing this conversation, at IGAD level, we, for example, talk about transhumance corridors. And I always wonder what corridors, I mean, for me, it's already too constrained to be in a corridor. I need grazing ground. So we need more information, not on the corridors, but these grazing grounds, small localized mobility, is what really makes a lot of sense for us on the ground. And then when we talk about NDVI and the greenness, and this links with definitely, the different tools like AfriScout and also the Earth Observatory that we have, how can we still go beyond this? I think we still need to go beyond this. There's a lot of browns that makes a lot of, nutritious value for us on the ground. And one thing that we observe on the ground also is that, by the way, the more forage that you have does not mean better livestock condition. There are some areas that you can see physically has very limited forage, but provides better nutrition. And that is something that pastoralists always tell you, yes, here you can see it has all this, but it lacks this element, and they have a term for it. It lacks this element, and that element is something that I'm a scientist, and me included, we have the challenge to find out what that means for them. And then when we talk about also this early warning and the actions that follow, what I didn't see is for who was this meant? Because I haven't seen these small things that we do also, because we have talked about the major things around, having these corridors, having these movements, but we do basic things. We manage our herds, we split our herds, we look at how our families can still get this small nutrition while livestock move, and we do our own ways of fodder reservations at the backyard. These small things also really matter. And then on the issues around invasive species, while the presenter was speaking, what came to my mind was, yes, invasives are there, but we also have a lot of other encroaching species that are generally indigenous, special acacia species. So sometimes I wonder, how do we place this conversation within, the desertification debate, for instance? In Marsabit, we are told we have to plant, I think, more than 200 million trees, for example. That's what we're being told. And on the other hand, the struggle for pastoralists is, what do we do with all these bushes that have taken over our prime lands? So how do we balance this conversation? And finally, when we also look at the rangeland status, the variability that comes with it makes it also complex. So if you look at a static point and you say current status, what does it mean? Do we need to look at the historical, where it has come from and where it is going? And what does that mean for the producers on the ground? And for all these technologies, and it's something also I struggle with, is we rely on smartphones, for example. How can we make it still accessible when we have very limited coverage, such that it can make good meaning for us? That is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malika and Hussein.